Finally, I've been able to properly get my hands on the new Polestar 3, which landed into Ireland a little while ago. There's been some delays with software, but some customers have already taken delivery of the new Polestar 3, although they're still going to be pretty thin on the ground for now. And there's also the Polestar 4, which is launched minus a rear windscreen. And we'll cover that video and that car in a separate one. If you have €93,000, they'll sell you one of these brand new cars. If you have €100,000, they'll even sell you a performance version of it. And if you've got well into six figures, they'll sell you a limited edition, which is the launch car version. It's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of car. Unlimited almost amounts of brake horsepower, load of torque. You get things like torque vectoring, dual motor, really fast charging, and a sublime interior that looks like it's been made by hand. It's not quite 5 meters long, but it's 4,900 millimeters. It's bigger and lower than a Tesla Model Y. Much like its somewhat related Volvo family, the Polestar 3 has the Thor hammer headlights. Interestingly, a massive airflow spoiler on the front of the car. You have an aluminium slash, is it chrome, over the front, which says Smart Zone, sensor cluster on it. All the sensors in the car are here. And it's kind of up to almost hip height for me at 175 centimeters. So even the nose of the car is quite tall. 489 brake horsepower or 517 brake horsepower, depending on which version you have. Swedish gold calipers with Brembos. On the performance version, you get the gold dust caps. A lot of black plastic going over the arches and along the side of the car. It does work on this kind of darker grey slash blue colour. Only real part I can find any sort of noise when you're driving through the air is from the mirrors. Aerodynamically though, it's still pretty good. You have the fold-in handles, which also help keep things nice and slippy. Again, not as tall as a Model Y, but I mean, it is still a monstrously big car. Make no mistake about it. Charging port is on this side. Lovely little details like the Polestar logo just stenciled in throughout the car. Huge big rear light bar, goes right across and has nice little markings over the top. These are to help with turbulent air comes over the back of the vehicle, so they help dissipate the air quickly. Again, should help with aerodynamics. Quite a big spoiler. Again, there's airflow under here as well, and you have quite a robust looking wiper on the back, but at least there's a wiper. That's the most important thing. Kind of overhangs nearly when you look at it from some angles over the rear end of the car. Boot release just under here. Your hands will get wet and dirty because of where that is. Flexible load shelf, 12 volt charging, somewhere to store bits, including a first aid kit. You can keep your Type 2 cable under here. There's still more space for other stuff actually as well. And then this part bends, so you can stack it up like that. You can drop it all the way in, and then you have another kind of divider shelf down here. So actually quite a usable boot, couple of tethering hooks to tie things down, a flat load in, and there's nice brushed aluminium over here. Again, it just gives it a premium feel. Quite a small window here, but actually there's more. It splits. So actually visibility for this type of car is quite good, and under here is carpeted. You don't normally get that in cars, so there's lots of nice little luxury touches and huge big struts for the electric tailgate. The back of the Polestar 3 is quite spacious. You get this huge panoramic glass roof that goes right the way through to the front and almost all the way back into the car as well. Even with the driver's seat, for my position, I mean, you're just spoilt for leg room, and there's privacy keeping areas back here, which are kind of molded in the same material as the seat back. The Napa feeling leather is very, very nice. 2 USB-C charging ports back here. If your own digital display for climate control, not like the Tesla models, the way you can play games on them, but still. And lovely touches, like all the materials, the metal of the car is covered up. Really great material here. You can just even listen to the sound of it. It sounds good. The ambient lighting, the way it floats under the armrest, the Bars and Wilkins lighting for the speakers. You know, you look around the car and you see where the price of it has gone. Interestingly, if you're not using the middle seat, you have this very nice, and it's got, again, a chrome on the outside to say push, you know, little details that are just more than you get. Even the armrest itself is covered in the same material as the seats. So really, it's a very luxurious place to sit as a passenger. Perhaps not as nice as the new Polestar 4, which is really overemphasized on rear passengers, if you ask me. But the flat floor and everything, it just complements the whole rear area with so much space in the back. Like the vast majority of cars these days, a lot of the action happens behind this screen, and I've been driving it for quite a few days now, and I'm still trying to get to grips with things like turning on the lights, which has to be done through this setting. Now, it doesn't ask you to confirm that you want to turn on the lights with the wheel as well, unlike the EX30 from Volvo, for example, but it will ask you to maneuver your mirrors and everything from this, and the cruise control has to be adjusted through these buttons that just take a bit of getting used to. Like any new car, there's a lot of tech in it. There is a bug report in it, so if you get an error, and there has been one or two about lights and stuff like that, you can send a report to Polestar, which I thought was quite interesting, because they're actually being upfront compared to a lot of other brands, where it's like, no, cars have software, things can go wrong, and if they do, we'd like to know more about it so we can fix it in an over-the-air update or whatever. So the car I'm driving at the moment has this key card. You just plonk it down here and it starts. Again, we've seen this kind of stuff in Tesla. Armrest has a cover on it. Then the actual armrest is quite deep, so there's loads of space down here. There's another floating area underneath this centre area, so you can store things. There's 2 USB-C charging bits, and another kind of like a smaller version of what's on the back of the seats goes down here, so you can tuck things out of sight there. The glove box has to be opened with a button, and again, if I want to go and find that, I'm just not used to it enough. Oh, here we go. There we go. So yeah, there's a bar that sits down the bottom beside your climate control, which is very discreet. The climate control in the car, sometimes you wouldn't even know it's on. It's that quiet. It's very impressive. Gear selector operated with a stalk down here. This is your wiper and your indicators. Polestar steering wheel is glaring back at you. You can put your Google Maps into this strip for the driver instruments if you wish. It doesn't just have to be through this larger screen, which has a good panoramic camera in it, 360 overview, all the rest of it. There's extenders in the back of the seats, and while there's not a huge amount going on, there's so much going on, if you get me. It's quite a minimalistic dash. One thing they have done, is they have a toggle switch on the same switch for the front windows as the rear windows, same as they've done in Volkswagen, and it means you're just having to mess with it. It's just like, Polestar, you got so much of the interior right. Why did you need to do that? The driving dynamics can be operated through so much of this screen, whether it's your one pedal driving, the suspension feel standard nimble or firm, the steering feel light standard or firm, there's hill descent, there's creep mode if you want, and there's all the GSR2 safety settings, which are in the assist option. You can turn them off. The speed limit warning, for example, every time. The distraction alert is also there, and pilot assist. So it really is a screen thing, and you'll need to take time to get your head around it. The sound system is class. All going on behind here. Be prepared for it. Nimble is where I've been leaving the suspension this week. I have tried firm, obviously for the purpose of this review, and it gives you the other dimension and the other split personality, I suppose, of this car. I mean, it's big, it's bulky, it's heavy, but that's not to say that it can't do a really good job of progressive driving, as I like to call it. So whether you have a load of bends coming up, the suspension does manage to cope. And the reason it can is, although the fact that it has an air suspension, it still is on the slightly firmer side to give you that level of handling when you need it. Now, it's not as good to drive as something like the Audi e-tron GT, because it's a more lower down car. But when you squeeze the throttle on this thing, oh my God, like it just sails off into beyond. It's so quick in how it performs. The Brembos in this car really, the bite position is good. Again, it doesn't suffer from that gap between regen and friction that so many EVs do. You're reminded quite often when you're driving the car that it has the capabilities, but you know, I don't think that's how this car is necessarily going to be driven all the time. The idea that we're going to spend our days in the Dublin mountains hammering this thing around, it's a nice fantasy, but life doesn't really work out that way. So, you know, most of the time, 90% of the time, you're going to want to be driving this car and feeling as comfortable as possible. And it will let you do that, even though it has this insane level of power going to all four wheels. So torque vectoring will help with how it goes through corners. If more or less power is needed to one individual wheel, it will help you steer around tight bends. The steering is sharp. You can obviously adjust how sharp that is. Again, so you can kind of dial in your own settings to how you'd like this car to perform. No matter what I've tried to do, I can't charge my phone on the wireless charging plate using the Apple cover that I have on the phone. So you've got to, from my experience anyway, take your phone case off your phone to charge on the wireless charger. It'll be much faster plugged in anyway, but that's a bit of an inconvenience. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the Polestar 3 is very quiet. I can barely hear traffic going past me. There's a bus, a car ahead, can't hear it. Motorbike, fair enough. But really, even at motorway speeds, you'll hear some noise over the quite large mirrors. Really, that's about it. There is one pedal driving, so you can set that up. There's two different levels of it. It's always at the bottom of the screen. So that is handy. These buttons take a little bit of getting used to because they're blanked out. It just looks like black high gloss on the steering wheel. I mean, aesthetically, it's great, but when you're trying to flick and toggle between screens, your Google Maps in front of you or your radar cruise, again, they're just things that you've got to get used to, but you will. Then when you do get a green light, you just, it's just so quick in a straight line. And I'm coming up to a roundabout that I know well, so let's put into that. Again, I'm in the floatier sort of suspension setting. I'm not in firm. That's, yeah, you're still going to feel a bit of the weight. Then you're back in the straight and it's like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And I love that you can have the suspension to your liking. So if you want to drive that all day long, at least you can set the car up to do it. Let's put it into firm now. And you can feel even just the change straight away. The steering has more to it. You feel more of the bumps and the imperfections in the road. The car feels sort of squatted down, and it has a more springy setup to how it progresses. 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers is what I've seen. Not the best, not the worst. No different to the Audi Q6, the newest version of it, which I have reviewed. If you want to compare it, I'll leave it at the end of this video for you. But this is no doubt the more luxurious offering of the two. It's just in terms of space and size, you could arguably compare them. But the Q6 is definitely the cheaper car. So it's quick, it's luxurious, and it will do all the family things you need it to do. It's just quite expensive. Polestar 3 then, should you buy one? Well, if you've got loads of cash and you want something that's a little bit out there in terms of its uniqueness, styling, luxury, performance, it sort of has it all. Now, the other thing is price in a while. So maybe again, it's not a massive factor for you because you've got tons of money, but depreciation hurts everybody. And that's a bit of an unknown entity right now in Polestar 3. They're just not around long enough. Even the Polestar 2, which was their first entry into the Irish market, they've done quite a bit of nip and tucking in that model. So it remains to be seen what they'll do with this if they need to increase sales. That said, you are getting a really, really luxurious electric SUV for the money, and it's kind of the full package. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Maybe you're watching this car going, oh, I'll have one of them in a couple of years when someone else has taken the initial hit. That's what the comments are here for. Let me know what you think, and thank you very much for watching.